Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Blackjack. Today, as always, I'll be doing a YouTube comment section deck for you guys. If you're interested in having me put a deck together for you, I'm looking for any of the 5 metrics in the comment section. A bracket, a budget, a commander, a theme, and any pet cards you have. Today we have a request from the user Rahme, who's looking for a crazy powerful Kefka Court Mage bracket 4 deck. A lot of interaction, the ability to absolutely destroy his pod. That's what I put together. Kefka is Grixis, 2 colorless, blue, black, red. 4/5. When it enters or attacks, each player discards a card, then you draw a card for each card type among cards you discarded this way. It does have a flip side, but we're not going to really pay attention or ever look to flip it. If you do, it's sweet. Start with the Planeswalkers, Liliana the Veil, plus to always discard, keeping people's cards in hand low, keeping their number of options to deal with you minimal is always going to be beneficial for us. Plus, you can minus it to get rid of a pesky creature. Narset Parter Avails. Main reason it's here is we do play multiple wheels in this deck, so being able to lock your opponents out when you do that is extremely powerful. If you go to cast a Windfall and everyone's supposed to draw 6, but Narset's out, everyone else will draw 1 and you'll draw 6. Creatures, so we have Gifts Ungiven lines and multiple lines in order to reanimate Hullbreaker Horror back onto the battlefield and start bouncing stuff. Nightscape Familiar, blue and black or blue and red costs 1 less. Simian Spirit Guide, a way for us to get to our spells faster. Turgid, not necessarily a combo piece, but it is an absolute must-answer creature. If this is out when we go for a wheel effect or before we cast Kefka and we just get to cast those permanents or put those permanents on the battlefield for free, it will end the game quickly. Finally, Thassa's Oracle. One of our main win conditions is Thassa's Oracle / Tainted Pact Demonic Consultation, and we also have Breach lines. I would say the main thing when you're building a bracket 4 deck is identifying the difference in bracket 4 and bracket 5, and to me that usually is reflected in the interaction you use. It's especially good in bracket 5 to have a lot of free interaction, a lot of low to the ground interaction, and a lot of interaction that deals with low CMC spells. Bracket 4 you can kind of tailor it a little bit more to being catch-all spells. Things like Blasphemous Act can be really good, but in the same vein, you look at things like Mental Misstep. Countering a 1 CMC spell in bracket 5 can be really great, but in bracket 4 might not be as powerful. So we skip on spells like those in order to cast more catch-all things like this. A lot of tutors, you have Demonic, Gamble, and Imperial Seal. Echo of Aeons is important because if you do happen to discard or somehow find your Underworld Breach in the graveyard, this is one of the only ways for you to actually get it out of the graveyard and back into your library so you can find it again. You really don't want to find a situation where Breach gets exiled or gets into the graveyard and you cannot get it back out. Yawgmoth's Will is another option you could go with, but we wanted to stick to that 1500 or less budget and we just couldn't afford it here. Jeska's Will, for the cost, it's incredibly powerful, a fast way to get to your commander, one of your win conditions. Persist and Reanimate. So we do play Gifts Ungiven, and one of your main lines can be Persist, Reanimate, Animate Dead, and then Hullbreaker Horror. So obviously they're going to give you the horror and then they're going to give you something else. So if you can find a way to discard your horror and then reanimate, and there's also multiple other lines where you can go get like Urborg and Cabal Coffers and Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation. So, it could be really dangerous for them to give you either Oracle or Tainted Pact or Consultation. So maybe they'll give you both lands and you can get ramped really fast. So it just comes with reps playing a deck like this. There's going to be a ton of tricky gifts lines for you to find here. If you don't know what gifts does, search your library for 4 cards with different names, give it to your opponent, they make 2 piles, 1 to your hand, 1 to the graveyard. Rite of Flame, a way to get to our spells faster. Torment of Hailfire, a secret win condition, not one I expect to come up a lot, but we do have Cabal Coffer / Urborg, and we can generate a ton of mana, so this is kind of our backup win con if all else fails. Toxic Deluge, in addition to Blasphemous Act, is another board wipe, and then finally two wheels, Wheel of Misfortune and Windfall. If the budget was unbounded for this deck, you would look at things like Time Twister and Wheel of Fortune. Instance, Brain Freeze. So if you do not know the line that goes with Underworld Breach, basically you have Underworld Breach on the battlefield, you escape a couple cards to either cast Brain Freeze from your graveyard or cast Brain Freeze from your hand, mill X times 3 cards equal to the number of spells you've cast, and then you cast your Lotus Petal out of the graveyard a couple times, make 2 mana, Brain Freeze again, so on and so forth until you basically have no cards in your library, and then you have, you can generate anywhere from like 5 to 15 mana depending on how many cards you're willing to escape with Lotus Petal, win with Thassa's Oracle, and if somehow that's not working, you can also look to just Brain Freeze your opponent's decks. Cabal Ritual and Dark Ritual, faster ways for us to get to Kefka or one of our main win conditions. Counterspell, Deflecting Swat, Fierce Guardianship, Force of Negation, Force of Will, Negate, and Swan Song are all ways to protect our win con on the turn we go for it, or keep someone from winning the game on the spot. Demonic Consultation as well as Tainted Pact are both ways you can win with Thassa's Oracle. Just name a card that's not in your deck. Entomb, get that Hullbreaker Horror into the graveyard. Essence Flux, a one-off way to protect Kefka or Hullbreaker Horror. If you do target Kefka, it will bounce it and then enter and trigger again, which can be really good. Frantic Search, so another, tricky line you could do with gifts is maybe get like Hullbreaker Horror, Frantic Search, Reanimate, and Persist. And maybe they give you Hullbreaker Horror and Frantic Search, and then you can just cast Frantic Search and discard it. Maybe they give you a Persist and a Frantic Search, and then you can just persist the Hullbreaker Horror. So there's a lot of ways where you can kind of guarantee that Hullbreaker Horror hits the battlefield. Cyclonic Rift is just a catch-all spell. Not one that I play in casual decks, but when we start talking bracket 4 and bracket 5, it's pretty much a must-have. Into the Floodmaw as a one-off bounce effect. If we have anything on the battlefield that we need to deal with right now, it can be good. Mystical Tutor as another tutor. I believe I already talked about all this stuff. Pognify as a one-off effect to deal with a pesky creature. And then finally another tutor in Vampiric. Artifacts. Arcane Signet, Chrome Mox, Dimir Signet, Felwar Stone, Izzet Signet, Lotus Petal, Mana Vault, Rakdos Signet, Soul Ring, Talisman, Thought Vessel. So I believe that is 13 pieces of ramp. Yep, that seems right. So typically that's more than I would play in a casual deck, but when it's extremely important that we get out Kefka fast, or we just have nothing to do in the early game, getting our mana out from under us so we can have an explosive turn and try to win between like turns 4 and 5 consistently, it's really important that we hit at least one ramp piece so that way we have extra mana and we're ahead of the table, ahead of schedule, essentially. Lotus Petal being the best one to work with your breach lines. And then obviously just for mana generation, Mana Vault is absolutely insane here, as well as Chrome Mox. We don't play all of the fast mana. We did have to be budget considerate, but I think these are the best ones that we could fit for what we were working with. The One Ring, just a insanely powerful card, probably one of the best card draw spells ever printed, at least post 2000 when you're ignoring things that, were in alpha and beta. But pretty much in any CDH deck or bracket 4 deck that I'm seeing right now. Enchantments, Animate Dead, another way for you to get back your Hullbreaker Horror. Mystic Remora and Rhystic Study are some of the best card draw effects. Necropotence, kind of the same thing, ability for you to draw a truckload of cards and try to find your win condition early on in the game. Propaganda to buy time. Underworld Breach for all of your lines, and then finally Waste Not in order to punish people for all the discard effects that you have, either your Windfall, your Wheel of Misfortune, your Kefka itself. There's a lot of ways that you're going to get a lot of value out of this. Looking at lands, typically I don't talk about lands very much, but in bracket 4, where we did put a significant amount of our budget into it, I think it's important. I put pretty much what I would consider a robust and fantastic land base here. You do have Urza's Saga in order to ramp and find your Petal and your other things. You have Urborg as well as Cabal Coffers to combo and generate a ton of mana for your Torment of Hailfire lines. Cavern of Souls to make your Thassa's Oracle and your Kefka uncounterable. Ancient Tomb to get to that stuff a little bit faster. I would say the interesting thing is when you're looking again at bracket 4 to bracket 5, most CDH decks are capped at around 30 lands. Some go down to like 26, some go up to like 32. 37 is more what you play for a traditional commander deck. So Rahme, as you build this deck and as you start testing it, I would see if this is an appropriate amount of lands or if you're hitting lands a little bit too much and a little bit too often. If that is the case, cut your basics, cut your mountains, cut your swamps. That would open up 4 slots and bring you down to 33, which I think is still plenty. And then you'd get 4 more slots to put in interaction or more wheels, more counters, more creatures to get back with reanimate lines. You can start looking at things like Archon of Cruelty. Another way for you to get back a creature out of the graveyard. So there's a lot of cool and interesting things that you can do with this deck, but I wasn't sure how many lands would be appropriate for your bracket 4. Bracket 4 is going to be very touch and go, I would say, with any different table that you play at. So again, test this. If you're hitting too many lands, you're drawing too much, cut the basic swamps, cut the basic mountains, free up 4 slots, and then add whatever you want. Otherwise, this is exactly what you wanted it to be. You are not going to make any friends with this deck, so hopefully you're playing it with friends that you already have. Otherwise, people are not going to be happy. Other than that, I think you're going to find yourself winning the game fairly often, and just like any high-powered commander deck, a lot of the power comes from getting reps with the deck and learning the ins and outs and all the tricks that you can do with it. So practice it a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, Godspeed.